Guys, we're on Reddit. We're on Reddit today. Like, very cool people. We are going to be doing the AMA today. I'm not exactly sure if it's done yet, but I want to go through and like look at the responses from the Blizzard employees. I think I can just open up their usernames and see their most recent responses. I guess we'll go ahead. Which perks had the highest impact on hero performance? Will perks have a higher priority in terms of balance than base hero perks, or will we see a combination of both going forward? Some of the winners so far have been Ana, Bastion, Pharah, Ramattra, and Winston. What? That's an interesting combo. Ana makes sense. I think Ramattra makes a lot of sense. They both have like extremely good combos of perks, I think. Winston definitely as well. Bastion and Pharah are interesting. I guess Pharah has the suction concussion, which, you know, for the majority of players, Pharah is already a problem, and then like you make it so that she can a lot more reliably displace you in what I would consider a scarier way. That probably is a lot. But Bastion, are people really just not like understanding what his other form does, or are people just unaware of how to kill him when he's self-repairing? I couldn't tell you. Those two are a little confusing to me. When it comes to individual perks, Ramattra's Vengeful Vortex, Mauga's Firewalker, Zarya's Energy Lance, and Soldier's Agility Training have been all quite impactful. Okay. Ramattra's Vengeful Vortex, that's the one that's the grenade that explodes, and you can do it in air, and basically, you know, it'll kind of fall or whatever. Mauga's Firewalker is the one that ignites enemies on Stomp. Energy Lance for Zarya is the one that pierces people. And the Agility Training is Soldier's movement speed, I believe. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of interesting that those are the ones that have been the most impactful. Honestly, I think like Ramattra has a better perk, and I think that Mauga probably has a better perk. Actually, you know, Firewalker is probably pretty good. That's a lot of damage on top of like instant survivability on a squishy. Which honestly, if you hit Firewalker on a squishy, that might actually be very impactful. I see that one. Zarya's Energy Lance, that is like the noob killer. Everyone's stacking together. And I think Agility Training is actually very good. Like, it makes Soldier function. Not to say that he is a very good character, but the perk itself makes a lot of sense. It's important, though, to look at the combination of your minor and major perks, what rank thresholds players are using them at, and how quickly a hero is gaining their perks. There's still quite a bit for us to dig through here. In the immediate, we mostly plan on balancing perks in order to make them feel more impactful. There will still be some core kit tuning alongside that, but there's still a meaningful amount of change we want to inject into the system throughout the next few patches. Tuning to perks and actual perk swaps, hoping for some in 16.0 are included in that. 16.0 is in like season 16. I don't actually know what they mean by that. I don't know. See, I would assume 16.0 is season 16. So are we not going to be getting perk nerfs until then? That doesn't seem right. Like tuning perks until then. I can't really imagine that's the case. Actual perk swaps, though, I can imagine we won't see until next season. I think that's a lot more reasonable. But they are ready. Like, they're not going to wait too long to swap out perks that aren't exactly working, which is good. All right, another one from Alec here. Clash can be really fun when the stars align. Anything you can share about whether you plan to do with the mode, or what you plan to do with the mode in the future? I was really looking forward to see the old 2CP maps reworked. Oh, and speaking of old maps, any hopes for Gothenburg to get a second life one day? Ooh, no way he talks about that one. Like you, I also believe Clash is awesome when it all comes together. We actually spent a good amount of time on Clash's scoring before we made the decision to pull it from competitive. So they obviously were working on it, because that's a lot of work to scrap. Even with scoring changes, we believe the mode needed some fundamental geo changes to point A and E to perform better as a competitive mode. Currently, we are experimenting with building another Clash map from the ground up with a different approach to the layout to see if that solves some of the core issues the mode has. That's all very early, but hopefully some significant geo changes along with scoring can get Clash into a great spot. I don't actually, like, obviously the endpoints are a problem, but in reality, I think the geography of the middle point is also a really big problem. Because that is why it can feel so, like, one-sided, because the middle point is supposed to be a neutral point, but when you take it, or rather when you take one backwards, right? So if I went down and then my team took the B or the D point and then we went back to the neutral point, it's no longer a neutral fight anymore because we get to hold the doors. And that is where, like, the point is not where the neutral fight should be. The doors are where the neutral fight should be, right? When you are in the middle of the game. So in my opinion, I think that the points themselves, yes, the middle point does need to be a neutral space, but so do the chokes as well. Because then it's like, okay, we're like 1-1, we're resetting, right? You cannot give the people who just took the point B or D too much of an advantage, and I think both of the maps do just by the nature of them. I don't know how you fix that. That's a really tough, like, thing, because eventually people are just gonna fight where it's advantageous. I wonder if you have to bring your spawns closer, right? So that you can't play there. I think, honestly, it might need a set of, like, opening and closing doors or walls or, like, moving geometry so that, like, the map kind of shifts throughout the game mode if you wanted it to be like that, right? I don't know. That is way too much, right? Like, that goes, like, way out of the realm of what I would say possibility. So that's just a really tough situation to solve. This one is from Scott Kennedy, which is Custa. Do we have any stats on which perk selections are the most one-sided? Example, one perk is picked over the other 90% of the time. He says, we do have stats that show perk selection rates per hero. I would say it's variable depending on the hero and the rank that they're being selected. In general, when a perk has an incredibly high pick rate, it's due to the other option not being enticing. For example, Roadhog's Miner Hog Toss isn't picked very often compared to Scrap Hook. Other options like Ramatra's Void Surge is a cool perk to play with that increases the hero's damage, so it's much preferred over the simpler defensive option Prolonged Barrier. Overall, the perk selection ranks that are one-sided are the ones you would expect, and we're using these stats and feedback to identify which perks need to be either balanced or changed in future patches. Okay, that's actually really interesting to me that most people are taking the Scrap Hook. I guess it makes sense. It is higher DPS on average, and I think it's a lot more reliable. At least it makes your hook reliable, like you can hook when you don't have ammo. Is it an excuse for bad ammo management? I don't think so entirely, but it's kind of part of it. The other one, like Void Surge, just like, yeah, I understand that I have more damage compared to like Prolonged Barrier. I honestly think that's one that isn't like as interesting, right? Like Prolonged Barrier, I think is really good in a lot of situations, especially when Ramatra and his team have to cross larger gaps or, have to fight pressure like that. But it's not as fun. You don't really get to feel it like you get to feel the weird like shotgun blast. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I think the question is, do you attempt to make, the other perk more interesting, right? Like in that example for Ramatra, could you give Prolonged Barrier, maybe it doesn't have duration increase, and I guess it could, or like maybe if they're around the shield, they get slowed, or, they take a debuff or something, right? That could be interesting. Maybe if you shoot through it, it's like a 10% amp matrix or something, very minor. That could be cool. They might want to look into stuff like that. Maybe like, especially like with that duration one, like just give it an extra oomph. That could make it like, be usable in some, or it is usable, but like more enticing, right? All right, kudos to the dev team for trying something so different. For me, it seems to be a hit already, and I can't wait to get my hands on Stadium. Chicken or egg question. Did Junkenstein's Revenge success serve as a spark for building a new game mode with talents more permanently into the game, or was this always in the back of mind given the amount of work that had gone into some talents since Overwatch 2's development? And then 2, what was the thinking behind limiting perks down to just 2x2 choices? And is this something that you think you could change in the future? I personally really enjoyed how more choices really led to different early and late game experiences. For the first question, Alex says, actually neither. The true impetus for this was our need for a game system layer to introduce more change into the core game. Having some talents to pull from was nice to have, but a large majority of the perks were built for the perk system specifically. Oh, that's interesting. The team had gotten really good at expanding kits, so there was plenty of good experience for us to get bring learning. The team had gotten really good at expanding kits, so there was plenty of good experience for us to bring good learnings into building perks. Junkenstein's lab gave us more signal for Stadium and how much we could expand the bounds of an Overwatch match while still making it feel like Overwatch. The second question about limiting perks. We played with a number of different iterations. Originally, we had 3 levels, but there was no choice. Didn't feel very different. Some iterations later, we gave players their minor perks passively, but you had a choice between 2 major perks later on in the game. We really liked the choice that gave, so decided to bring it in earlier at the minor perk level as well. Overall, we felt that this was the right amount of change to introduce initially. We were changing some of the fundamentals of how Overwatch worked, and we were trying to measure with how much we could disrupt that. Maybe we could have gone even farther, but I think we are in a good place for now, and with time we'll see how far the player base wants us to take systems like this. I don't know how much that is really revealing to us. But yeah, I think it is interesting though that like the game system or like a lot of the perks were like original. Like they were not actually like from something else that was scrapped. Like they're made for this. I think that is really cool to hear that they're like actually designed for perks, right? Some of them might have had some inspiration elsewhere, but it's still pretty cool. The other one though was like, what is it? Originally we had 3 levels, but there was no choice. I see. So they're saying like there was no choices at all. You just got 3 different perks that they picked. Like they kind of determined how your character was going to buff themselves in the match, right? And then they just liked the idea of picking perks with the major ones, so they applied it to the minor ones. That's probably why a lot of the minor ones feel a little uninvolved or uninteresting, if I had to guess, just because like that was like the secondary thing, right? Like we should add another minor perk. That could be like a reason why there's some disparity there. I think that's like interesting to think about. How does the team decide who gets the fun perks like Farah, Kiriko, Ana, who gets the new ability perks like Bastion, Orisa, and Torb, and who just gets numbers buffs like Reaper and Genji? Are the numbers buffs just placeholders with plans to go into more extreme in the future to match the other heroes? That's an interesting question that they would interact with, saying like, hey, who gets the fun perks? Some of these aren't fun, Blizzard. He says, well, the goal overall is to make fun perks for every hero, of course. That can be more difficult on certain heroes, though, as boosting certain elements of their kits can cause issues. Currently, the number buff perks are some of the perks we like the least, and plan on changing a handful of those over time. This initial launch has given us plenty of signal of which perk combinations players find compelling, and which ones they didn't. Okay, so like they are aware that some of them are just not as interesting or fun as the others, right? I mean, that's going to be kind of what's going to happen. I think it's important for us to stay true to our values for minor and major perks. Your minor perks are supposed to be lighter, nice little upgrades. Your major perks are supposed to be transformative. We have had some work to hit that goal for all of the heroes and offering more transformative major perks. I agree, but I do think a couple of the minor perks do like change how you want to play a little bit. Like I do think there is a lot more to the minor perks than they kind of like initially give them credit for. There are a couple of them that aren't, let's be real, but I do think there is a lot more to some of the minor perks as well. This one says, in the spotlight, Alec mentioned a refresh of the perks in the middle of the year. Does that mean 4 brand new perks for everyone? Saw someone mention Aaron said something along those lines but couldn't find where. Or is it more like a few perks that will be changed or tweaked if desperately needed here and there before the refresh? And the refresh is more thorough for perks that are less lopsided and not 4 brand new perks for everyone. Alec responded to this himself. He said the goal there would be that every hero gets at least 1 new perk to play with. Wow. Okay. Still scoping out what that refresh would look like for season 18. Okay, so a full refresh would not be coming like every season. Okay. But somewhere around 25 to 50% of the perks changing, some being completely new and some receiving significant tuning. If we have perks that players really love, we don't want to immediately remove those, and the refresh would be looking at perks that are more middling in interest. We'd also like to evaluate how the perk system functions overall at that point too. That can include changes to the catch-up mechanics, game rates, or even a starting level choice. Those are fairly early discussions though, and how the season goes will give us good insight as to where the perks take us. I will say that I do think that some of the catch-up rates are lopsided. I think it can be really, really easy to catch up, especially like earlier in the match than you might expect. And they definitely need to take a look at that, in my opinion. Sorry, I'm looking at my phone like I'm addicted. Well, we all are, but anyways, yeah. So I do think that they should take a look at those, but those are gonna be like really hard to kind of determine now, like right now. So keep an eye on that later in the year. Very important question: will the new heroes since OW2's release be getting dance emotes? He says, I don't know when everyone's dance emotes are coming in, but I can confirm that Ramatra is up next, and soon. Okay, sure. Ramatra gets to dance. Hell yeah. Let him use those feet that he was built with. What am I saying? I'm gonna keep going. Our perks going to start rotating next season. You're going to wait and let the current batch simmer for a bit before changing them. Bouncing off of that, if you're looking at specific underperforming / less interesting perks now, which ones are on the potential chopping block? A lot of my friends have noticed the extra throw range on Hog / Junk Trap as being quite weak. Finally, do you have any desire to ever add another level to perks, either something in between minor and major, or even something above major? Here he says, we're going to start rotating in some new perks for Season 16, but before we get there, we've got a bunch of balance changes and tweaks coming in the Season 15 mid-cycle. So we've got a couple more weeks before that happens. So balance is probably not going to be very great in like a hotfix or anything. We're going to have to wait till the mid-season. Do I see YouTube chat too? I do, yes, if I remember to put it up on my monitor. Things like, sorry, and there are some good things coming for some underperforming perks. Things like Hog Toss now increasing the damage of Pigpen. Oh, Jesus. No. That just makes the one shot easier. You're not going to actually use it to throw and like to that. No. I don't like that one. Juno's double jump reset perk is also going to increase the duration of glide boost. Okay, see, that makes a lot more sense. Increase the duration of glide boost by how much? That's good. I think that is good. Although in some regards you don't actually get as many double jumps anymore because your glide boosts are longer. I don't know. That could be cool. On the other end of the spectrum, Bastion's self-repair resource meter is coming back. Yeah, it definitely should have been there in the beginning. We did a ton of iteration on how many levels perks should come with. There were versions with 2 level ups through, I think, 4, and even where we eventually had all minor and major perks. Like you got everything they came out for. 3 levels has been the sweet spot for a while, but that's not to say the system can't evolve. Still a bit early, but it's a system that can evolve if need be, which is always good. How long that's going to take, we don't know. Was pre-selecting perks / perk presets ever considered? Oh, that's interesting. I haven't even thought about that. I don't know. They probably want it to be adapted, but let's see what he says. We did discuss the idea of pre-selecting perks, and the original design even had an interface for them as a loadout in the hero gallery. But once we started playtesting the abilities themselves, there were a lot of situations where we'd want to go with a different perk based on the situation at hand. Being locked into a choice made prior to really being 100% of what you wanted to choose felt like a worse option than always giving yourself options. That's not to say this couldn't change as people get used to the choices and their playstyle with perks become a bit more cemented though. I don't think you should play like that, and I agree with their option to make it like always a choice. That is definitely the best way that they could have done it. Are there any perks that you've seen a lot of praise for that you think could potentially incorporate into that hero's base kit? Okay. There aren't any current plans to implement specific perks into hero kits, but there are perks that have helped heroes in ways that could lead to changes in the future. I think the biggest example of this would be Bastion. The perks have helped fill in some of the holes in their kit. For example, Armored Artillery making the ultimate more dynamic. True. Smart Bomb helping Bastion's lack of mobility. Self-Repair aiding survivability issues. These perks made the hero both better overall, but also much more fun to play as well. This was one of the major goals perks were trying to accomplish, but I can see us taking some parts of perks and putting them in the base kits as hero change in the future. Smart Bomb giving more knockback, or at least like no self damage, would be very good, very interesting, very fun. This one is a very, very short one. This is for Custa. What was the thought process behind giving Ana headshots despite the fact that you cannot hit crits? He says, good thing for those who can't hit headshots like me, we have double nano boost. Haha, funny main support player. Silly. Which perks, too good or too bad, are you monitoring the most? Okay. Do you plan on fully replacing perks every 6 months to 12, or would you rather keep the ones that are working, adjust the ones that are almost there, and swing for the fences by replacing the rest? There are obviously some on our radar that we're keeping an eye on. Obviously, Tracer's major perk Flashback was one that we were wary of and are looking to see how impactful this perk can be. Mobility perks like Zarya's minor jump ups, this gave her a lot of vertical mobility and is very strong on some maps, but its pick rate varies dramatically depending on the rank. What is her other minor? What is Zarya's other minor? I honestly don't remember. Because it might not be worth to pick that one in most situations. It's the Grav one. The Grav one is really good, I think. Yeah, I don't know. If it's too much vertical mobility, they can get rid of a little bit of it, and I think that'd be fine. Right? Like, they can nerf it a little, and it would still be fun. Then he says, there is a list of perks that have been underperforming both in win and pick rate that we're actively looking at to make balance changes or even replace them starting in Season 16. The goal is to make every set of minor and major perks feel like there is a choice to be made depending on your playstyle, the map, or how the match is going. If a perk feels like it's always the right choice or the wrong choice, then we have to make changes, which is good, right? Like, obviously they want that. There's a reason that you pick the perks and they don't just pick them for you. So how fast they're going to be able to act on that is kind of like what is going to matter the most, right? This is a question for Custa. How are you so smart, talented, and amazing at your job? But more seriously, what are the developers' favorite perks? Not necessarily the best ones, but their favorites. Okay. I personally had the most fun with Craftsman. That's the one where you give armor back to your tank with Torbjorn Hammer. Other notable mentions would be Farah's Concussive Implosion, which is the Grav one, and then Zarya's Jump Ups, which is letting Zarya have a little bit of vertical mobility. Actually, not just vertical mobility. Excuse me, I just burped. I gotta stop eating right before I stream. Well, I kind of can't because I need to eat, so you're gonna have to deal with it. Ideal perk balance would be if both choices on minor/major have as close to a 50% pick rate as possible. I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is that it should be situational, and some situations are more like come up more often than others. You know, a lot of teams are gonna, especially on ladder, are gonna try to force like the brawl tanks or things like that. So I actually don't think it's like a bit of a pick rate thing. I think it really should just be like, if there are distinct situations that you could try to pick one, or like, you know, even if there's some like, I don't know if it's better in this situation or not, there's at least some choice there. I don't think it necessarily has to be 50-50, you know? But so long as it's not like 100-0, I think it's really, is really the important thing there. There's some interesting perks that the team scrapped along the way. He says, we played with a variety of movement perks for heroes that don't have much mobility. We wanted to see if we could do a movement perk for Torb. I think it only lasted a playtest or two, but Torb could launch himself off his turret by double jumping on it. Holy! And the idea was that if you had the sticky turret, you could change the angle of that leap and catapult yourself into backlines. Maybe we will come back to that one day. Was certainly silly. Okay, let's play with that with a little bit in our heads. I think that sounds like a minor perk. What would that be? I think that would be really good. Would it? Because you put this like extremely tanky character on a silly flank, and then he can like survive in theory, or he like uses it as an escape tool. That could be funny, right? I don't know. I don't know. I think I honestly that could be a little too much for that character. But it seems very funny. I would have loved to see if that one actually made it in here. Something about a fix. Are there any ideas to make Mystery Heroes mode less stomping with new perks? Currently, perk system is another advantage that a winning team have compared to the team who's currently losing. Oh, interesting. I know it's just a non-competitive mode with no big priority, although it has a huge player base. We have a fix for this coming next week. Actually, you'll get 2 random perks each time you spawn. Mystery Heroes with random perks. Oh, hell nah, man. Wait, actually, that actually might be really interesting, because then it's like, okay, you have like a super high power level the entire game, which, you know, is kind of fun for Mystery Heroes. And if you get a character that's like super broken, you might actually get one of their perks that isn't. You actually have a bit of a fighting chance. That could be interesting. I like that. Short one here from Blizz Hudson. What is a primary weapon archetype you either want to fit in that you haven't yet, or think is at least very underexplored? The one weapon that always comes up during the what's next discussion is the Flamethrower. We'd love to get one in, but it's gotta be epic. Dude, everyone's been saying Flamethrower. How has Flamethrower not happened yet? I think it is hard because it's like constant close range damage. It would probably have to be on a tank. How do you make it interesting? I don't know. You can't really like continued use of it does more damage, because then again that's just like the tank shredder. I feel like there's a lot of things that they're avoiding with a what's it called? With a Flamethrower character. What's the overall design goals / pillars for perks? For some, hero perks seem to be covering weaknesses that they may have, Forest Drift Thrusters or Reaper's Dire Triggers, while other perks seem to allow players more skill expression, Sigma's Massive Impact, or Ana's Biotic Bounce. And some perks just seem odd or unfitting for the hero, Sombra's White Hat or Moira's Contamination. Is there a set philosophy for perks that can be shared with the community? Because it seems like perks are trying to solve a lot of problems in the sandbox. I don't know what they mean by that, but perks are mainly about creating new things for your hero to do, increasing situational viability, and giving you more agency over your in-match experience. For that goal of increasing the amount of situations in which a hero can be viable, that can come through via shoring up weaknesses against certain heroes. That can also come through by adding mobility, so certain heroes can be played on more maps. That goal led to perks like Junkrat's Frag Cannon, Sigma's Levitation, and many more. The one thing I'll say about that is that, like, yes, that is true, but you can't, like, start on them. You know what I mean? You can't, if you're like, oh, I want to play Sigma on a bad map, you have to make it all the way to his major perk to make that viable. So you probably have to pick him later when the old the perk generation is like better, and pick like a better character for that map first if you want to be like the most effective. So I mean, like, yes, it could happen, but in practice, how much is it really doing that? You know what I mean? I think that's like kind of an interesting thing to see, if it really works like that. And then for perks like Sombra's White Hat, that is fulfilling a particular hero fantasy that many players wanted us to lean into, and we think that's an interesting opportunity the perk system creates. Over time, we'll see how players respond to some of those more off-the-wall ones. Now, Sombra's one sucks because it's heal over time, and there's just so much to it. Like, I feel like it should be instant, or like over health or something like that. Something a little more interesting, like right off the bat, because as it stands, I think it's a little wet noodle. It doesn't feel very good. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this, please like and subscribe, and also leave a comment down below. What was your favorite thing from this? What is the best piece of information you think we got out of this. Now, if you want to get more from me, check out my stream. That's twitch.tv/LaneHemingway or YouTube Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. You can join my membership if you want a couple extra free videos a month, or you can check out my podcast here on YouTube and on Spotify. All those links are in the description below, along with my Discord, where you'll be able to find even more information and keep up to date with everything that I am doing. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching, and please have a good day.